Anzac Day. Held on the 25th of April each year, is one of Australia's most important national occasions. It marks the anniversary of the first major military action fought by Australian and New Zealand forces during the First World War. ANZAC stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. While soldiers of two different countries, these forces quickly became known as the Anzacs, and the pride they took in that name endures to this day. When war broke out in 1914, Australia had been a federated nation for only 13 years, and its government was eager to establish its reputation among the nations of the world. When Britain declared war in 1914, Australia was automatically placed on the side of the Commonwealth. In 1915, Australian and New Zealand soldiers formed part of an expedition that set out to capture the Gallipoli Peninsula. The Australian and New Zealand forces landed on Gallipoli on the 25th of April, meeting fierce resistance from the Ottoman Turkish defenders. What had been planned as a bold stroke to knock Turkey out of the war quickly became a stalemate and a campaign that dragged on for 8 months. At the end of 1915, the Allied forces were evacuated from the peninsula, with both sides having suffered heavy casualties. More than 8,000 Australian and New Zealand soldiers had died in the campaign. Gallipoli had a profound impact on Australians at home, and the 25th of April soon became a day on which Australians remembered the sacrifice of those who died in the war. Although the Gallipoli campaign failed in its military objectives, the actions of Australian and New Zealand forces during the campaign left a powerful legacy. What became known as the Anzac Legend became an important part of the identity of both nations, shaping the way in which they viewed both their past and their future. In 1916, the first Anzac Day commemorations were held on the 25th of April. The day was marked by a wide variety of ceremonies and services across Australia. In London, 2,000 Australian and New Zealand troops marched through the streets, and in an Australian army camp in Egypt, a sports day was held. Marches were held all over Australia, the largest of which was held in Sydney. A convoy of cars carried the soldiers wounded on Gallipoli and their nurses. For the remaining years of the war, Anzac Day was used as an occasion for patriotic rallies and recruiting campaigns, and parades of serving members of the AIF were held in most cities. During the 1920s, Anzac Day became established as a national day of commemoration for the more than 60,000 Australians and 18,000 New Zealanders who had died during the war. In 1927, for the first time, every state observed some form of public holiday on Anzac Day. By the mid-1930s, all the rituals we now associate with the day, the dawn vigils, marches, memorial services and reunions were all firmly established as part of Anzac Day culture. Later, Anzac Day also served to commemorate the lives of Australians who had died in the Second World War, and the subsequent years following the day has been further broadened to include all those lives lost in all military and peacekeeping operations in which Australian and New Zealand soldiers have been involved. Australians recognise the 25th of April as a day of national remembrance, which takes two forms. Commemorative services are held across the nation at dawn, the time of the original landings, while later in the day former servicemen, servicewomen meet to take part in the marches through the country's major cities and many smaller centres. Commemorative ceremonies are more formal and are held at war memorials around the country. In these ways, Anzac Day is a time at which Australians reflect on the many different meanings of war and how it has shaped us as a nation. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun in the morning, we will remember them.